Oh my gosh, you're so cute. Good morning, or whatever time it is for you. I decided to hop on for like 15 minutes before I head out of the house today. I'm looking at my little kitty over there who's being pretty adorable. Oh, I wish he'd come on cam. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it could get kind of chaotic because he's like getting himself comfortable. But yeah, so like one of the things is like I'm pretty tired. It's been kind of, oh my God. This, oh my God. It's so cute. Oh my God. Oh my God. I really like, he is so cute. Yeah, no, it's been a pretty demanding week. And, I think one of the things in the practice of Parinama is really about how love is about showing up the best that you can, like as consistently as possible. So, I guess you could say that's part of what I'm up to today. And it could get like that could happen again. I'm very permissive with my cat in terms of what he can do and how he can roam. So, yeah, if he if he chooses to take another role, yeah, that could we could have a repeat. But anyway, oh my gosh, it's really hard not to watch him because it's like ridiculously adorable. But yeah. Yeah, so it's been a pretty crazy week, and, but I'm really happy to be here, uh, doing another live reading. In this particular section, I'm gonna see how much I can get to because I do need to leave probably in about 10 minutes, but I'm gonna read through Voltage, which is on page 28, which is a continuation of the notion of charge. And that was the last one that I read. If you're following along, you got that. If you're following the book, um, that then you know where to go. But but yeah, I'm just gonna dip right in here. So Voltage, and with a keen eye on the little, oh my gosh, he's his little claw raised up. It's pretty cute. All right, getting serious now. So Voltage, so this is a continuation of charge. So voltage, chronic and acute. So like electrical voltage, charge occurs in a range of intensity, both in the moment and over time. Think of Goldilocks principle, an analogy of the fairy tale used in cognitive science and developmental psychology. Goldilocks tried 3 bowls of porridge, one too hot, one too cold, and one just right. Acute experiences that involve invasion and abuse of any or all boundaries can and do create long-standing damage. A single experience of intense shock and voltage, such as assault or abuse, can create a holding pattern in our body. However, interruption and trauma can be experienced as too much too soon, the porridge is too hot, or too little for too long, the porridge is too cold. So, another way to look at this concept is to think of a plant being over or underwatered. If a plant is overwatered, its roots become waterlogged, so it'll need time to dry out. Or, in the case of too little for too long, if a plant is underwatered, the soil becomes so dry that water drains out before it can reach the roots. It needs to receive water slowly. It can't handle more than it can handle. Someone who's been overwatered by charge needs time to process. Someone who's been underwhelmed or ignored, underwatered, needs slow, steady, and patient care over time. Children get overwatered when experience acute or chronic trauma and shock and are underwatered through chronic loneliness, neglect, and boredom. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a really important point about the Parinama method and even practicing it is that, and this is something that I've thought about a lot lately as it's out in the world and people are talking to me about their experiences with it, which is that the method itself can be, like a lot of charge. And as far as voltage is concerned, it can be overwhelming for people. And so there's kind of a chicken and egg thing, which is this is about building capacity. And especially emotional capacity. So if, especially for folks who recognize the underwatered feeling of, of perhaps having been a lonely child, um, that, emotional capacity can, can flood a system. And so when reading Parinama method and getting into it, that there can be a flooding. And so here's the thing. I mean, I think with this is, and this is, once again been really like top of mind, even for myself actually, is just the understanding of really being patient with ourselves in these processes, and realizing that when we're coming up to the edge of our comfort zone and actually like moving against it a little bit, it's like slow and steady. And if anything, instead of like creating some notion of like of where you're supposed to be, or yeah, just some kind of abstraction, is to, if possible, like drop in to really the knowingness of what you're doing right now is the active expansion and growth, and in this very like patient and kind way, and to feel the connection to the doing of that, instead of the idea of being like, I should be somewhere, like be like have more expansion, or like I should be feeling this way. But anyway, yeah. So in the interest of time, I'll soldier on. All these topics you can talk about like honestly forever. So yeah, I actually think I might have already read this, but here we go. Second time's the charm. All right. So as Lowen and Reich asserted, when it comes to the intensity of charge, body size matters. But for a young child, this can present a challenge. I did already read this. All children are small relative to adults. An average 4-year-old is about 3 feet 3 inches tall and weighs 34 to 40 pounds, or between 34 and 40 pounds. The average American adult is about 5 feet 8 inches tall and weighs about 170 pounds. If we convert the size differential to our adult lives, it would be like having a 10-foot tall, 720-pound person towering over us. We'd be helpless to defend ourselves if the person wasn't kind. We'd either hide, like trying to be an easy child who adjusts to the capability of the caregiver, or we fight, perhaps at the cost of being shamed, then labeled as disruptive or bad. If the hub receives too much voltage before it's developmentally capable of handling it, such as with abuse, it can get blown out like a circuit, or it can become a live wire when activated by touch or stimulation. The energy that gets trapped in a hub with a traumatic amount of voltage must be released carefully. As we grow and mature, the development of each hub sequentially increases its capacity and integration with the other hubs. Examples of age and size inappropriate voltage include being hit or physically restrained, being verbally abused, or being screamed at or shamed for behavior that's developmentally impossible. For children, for example, children are not developmentally capable of sharing until they're between 3.5 and 4 years old. But research has shown that 43% of adults believe children can and should be able to master sharing by age 2. Studies have shown that when forced sharing happens too early, it interrupts the development of generosity in young children. High voltage sent through a tiny body can also be experienced when children are expected to behave with adult level maturity. If a hub gets overstimulated by what's seen, heard, or experienced before it has developed the capacity to have perspective, there's a shock to the system, and adaptation is necessary and inevitable. Exposure to pornography, flirtation, and sexual innuendo is common for many children, and the stimulation for a little body can lead to confusion when being interrupted feels exciting. When a child believes it can what a child believes it can handle versus what's appropriate can often be two different things. A caring adult who helps with the processing of the voltage inappropriate experiences can be life-saving for a child. Sometimes these experiences are walled off in the fog of our early cognition. Other times they're memorable but muted and rationalized. Memorable because of the shock to the system, and rationalized to protect the perpetrators. In adulthood, a common protective responses, I turned out fine. Adults will talk nonchalantly about mistreatment, of childhoods witnessing violence or being exposed to age inappropriate sexual material. Why do these memories persist when so many others do not? In some cases, the interruption was so severe that the memory of it is walled off, but then trouble with emotional regulation arises, which can feel like a mystery. Sometimes, if we're holding a lot of charge, we can surprise ourselves by the intensity of our reactions when we see or experience injustice, abuse of power, insincerity, or deception. We may find ourselves getting activated and not understand why. Energy is the currency of our lives. We receive energy in food, touch, encouragement, and money. We're familiar with how to release and discharge energy through work, physical activity, dancing, talking, yelling at sports events and concerts. We release with spontaneous reactions until we're taught to control our behavior, perhaps to avoid punishment, and to gain acceptance, perhaps to avoid embarrassment. As children, we learn to fit into our environment, sometimes in ways that shift us out of our natural responses and inclinations. If there are stressors in the home or the environment, like a death, an illness, or unmet needs, we instinctively learn to adapt to survive. Life finds a way. Anything that is alive adapts to its environment to the best of its ability. However, if survival adaptations are not consciously evaluated, they can become hardwired reflexes, which later in life interfere with the quality of our lives. So, yeah, I definitely already read that, and I put the bookmark in the wrong place. But here we are. I mean, look, as stated, I don't know that any of this stuff goes down like super smooth in one go. I mean, I certainly, every time I read it, kind of resurface thoughts about it. And back to the thing about charge and emotional capacity, when practicing the Parinama method is learning about the regulation and like moving into a practice that helps increase emotional capacity is it's kind of which comes first as far as um, getting kind of like overstimulated by a notion and potentially overwhelmed, so in the process. So, I think that, one of the things for me, especially in like when I was like deep in the development of it, sometimes I get really lost and I guess overwhelmed is probably the best way to describe it in it, where it would just be like I couldn't, where I was like having a hard time like navigating and the intensity of it. And what I call kind of the long pole in the tent of Parinama method is like the guiding principle is that there's nothing wrong with you. So whenever the feeling arises, or any feeling arises of being kind of like overwhelmed by notions or even made sad about things, um, anything, anything is to really reconnect with, to the extent possible, the knowingness that nothing that you're doing in the state you're in of overwhelm is absolutely like just it's that like it's evidence of growth, but that it's also potentially evidence of growth, but also just to know that no matter what, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Yeah. Yeah. So anyhow, I'll see you next time, and next time I'll read a fresh passage, and who knows, maybe Luke will make an appearance. But thank you. I love you for being along for the ride for this, and I can't wait to keep going. All right. Bye.